Okay, Ezra Hashem. Today's daf is daf Yud Gimel Masechta Gittin. We're going to begin from daf Yud Beis Amud Beis by the Tashma over here, where it's green, about the first third of the Amud. Basically, we're discussing a very interesting thing. If a man has a slave, okay, you have a slave, and the Gemara seemed to, from the Mishnah, it seems to imply that the question is, can I tell the slave, you go to work? Okay, let's say he's an accountant. You go to work for Cooper's Lybrand, and I'm going to get your paycheck. As far as food, I don't have to provide you. I'll give you time at night, go collecting. So the first Gemara said, until now, we proved, Shma mina eina yachal. A master can't do that. If the slave is going to work, then the money the slave makes will be used to buy his food. That's what the first opinion holds. And it doesn't seem that that is the opinion of our Mishnah. But there's a way to interpret our Mishnah that a master can't do that. Because our Mishnah seems to say that it's very advantageous for a slave to go free. Very advantageous, because the master can really say, I'm keeping your paycheck, and I'm not even providing food. So who's the author, and who really is the most strict on this opinion? So Gemara brings like this: Tashma, the Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan, by the way, is going to disagree with Rav, but Rabbi Yochanan said, "Haketei yad avdoi shel chaver," someone who cuts off the hand of the slave of his friend. So noisin shiftoi urufuasoi l'rabbi. He gives the sheves. Sheves is the unemployment check. And he has to pay the unemployment of the slave while he's, in the hospital. And the doctor bills, instead of paying the doctor, he pays l'rabbi to the master. So we have to understand what that means. So now that the master is getting all this money, you would think that he has to provide supper for the slave while he's in the hospital. No, that Eved gets from tzedakah. He has to get his food from tzedakah. Shma mina, from this language that Rabbi Yochanan said, Yochel harav loy Eved. A master can say to this slave, I say, Imi, you're going to work, and I'm going to keep your paycheck. The I'm not even going to provide food for you. So that seems what Rabbi Yochanan is trying to say. So that's a proof, and that's a proof to our understanding of the Mishnah that a master can do such a thing. So the Gemara wants to attempt and say, no, Rabbi Yochanan didn't mean that. He said, talk about my yaskinin. Here we're talking about b'ma'aleh loy mezonus, when the owner, the master, is actually feeding the slave. He's giving him the food that he needs for the day. So then what's the question? Ihachi, if that's the case, amai nizan min hatzedakah. Why does the Rabbi Yochanan say that slave gets his food from tzedakah if the master is giving him food? Answers the Gemara, maybe it means lahadafa. If the slave needs surplus, let's say he needs sweets, candies, or whatever he needs, so then that the master doesn't have to provide, that he goes to tzedakah to get. And that's what Rabbi Yochanan meant. So the Gemara says, no, that doesn't make sense. Ihachi, if that's the case, if he's only coming for tzedakah for the surplus, the extras that he needs, nizan. Though you use the language nizan means you get your main meals from tzedakah. The word nizan means you get your main meals. Misparnes miboyle. The better word would have been to use misparnes, which implies that you get your extra sustenance from tzedakah. The fact that he used the language nizan min tzedakah implies that Rabbi Yochanan held that a master is not required to feed his slave, although he gets to keep the paycheck of the slave. Alav shmamina, from here you can see, Yochel, the master can say that and keep the paycheck and does not have to provide food for the slave. Shmamina, that's a clear proof. Now let's just do some housekeeping. Let's clear up what Rabbi Yochanan meant to say. Again, a friend sliced off the hand belonging to the slave. So what should he do? Amamar, noisin shiftoi rufwasei l'rabbi. The guy that did such a terrible thing should pay the unemployment and the doctor bills to the master. So the Gemara says, shiftoi, the unemployment check Pshita, that certainly goes to the master. Just like a regular paycheck goes to the master, certainly the unemployment check belongs to the master. So the chiddush is rufu asa itzruch, that you pay the entire cost of the hospital stay. Instead of writing the check to the hospital, you give it to the master. So the Gemara doesn't understand that. Rufu asa, healing the slave, the dehi belongs to the slave. The boya atesuya bay, because he needs it to heal himself. Who's going to pay his doctors if the master is going to keep if the master is going to keep the payment for the doctors? Answers the Gemara, like tzricha, this chiddush that the master gets to keep some of the payment for the doctor bills is the amdu lecham shiyomim. They measured him and estimated him that it will take 5 days for him to heal if they use a certain type of medicine. And they made him a very harsh medicine, a sharp medicine, and it healed the slave in 3 days. So you're paying for 5 days of you pay basically the guy that cut the hand off will pay for 5 days. 3 days you pay for the doctor for the medicine. The extra 2 days the master keeps. But now who suffered through this medicine, through this harsh medicine? It was the slave. So Mahu the same, I would have thought Sarah di Dehu, that the stress and the pain of taking such a sharp medicine would earn the Evet to keep the surplus payment of medicine for the extra 2 days. He was healed in 3 days. Mashmalan, not so. Rabbi Yochanan teaches you that it belongs to the master. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Now, in our Mishnah, it said, again, just to review our Mishnah says that if a man says to a person, I want you to give this get to my wife. Now, this person's not an agent of the woman. So therefore, the Mishnah says that the man could backtrack and say, oh, I don't want to give this get to my wife. You come back over here. But if he gave a shtar shichrur to this agent, if he gave a shtar shichrur to the agent, like a freedom document to give to a slave, even though he's not an agent of the slave, the agent automatically becomes an agent of the slave. He becomes the shliach of the slave. Why? Because zachin la'adam shlei b'fanav. You can become an agent for somebody if it's beneficial for him. And for the slave to go free, it's very beneficial. So therefore, as soon as this agent receives this document, this freedom document, it's too late. If the owner says, oh, I retract, it's too late, because the agent became his agent automatically without even being designated as an agent. He becomes the agent of the slave, and therefore it's no backsies, because it's beneficial for a slave to go free. As you see in the Mishnah, that the master doesn't have to even provide him food. So he's better off being a free man. But Reb Meir says it's detrimental for the man. And the reason why Reb Meir says it's detrimental for the slave, because even though the master is not giving him food, but as a slave of a Kohen, this person could go around and collect truma. So that's what our Mishnah says. No, if it's detrimental for a slave to go free, therefore he's not an agent of the slave, and therefore, as Reb Meir holds, that if he wants to retract, if the master wants to retract after giving this freedom document to this agent, he can't do so. So the point is, Reb Meir holds it's detrimental for a slave to go free. Chachamim hold it's advantageous for him to go free. So let's read it in Gemara. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa. Amar Ablaza said, we told Meir, isn't it beneficial for an Eved to go from the jurisdiction of his master to freedom? Why are you saying it's detrimental? So Reb Meir said, it's detrimental for him to go free. Because if he was a slave of a Kohen, that means that if he was an Eved Kohen, by you accepting the agent saying, oh, I'm accepting this get shichra on his behalf, automatically now this Evet the slave of the Kohen cannot collect truma, which he was entitled to as being the slave of a Kohen. So we said to him, isn't it true that every master of a slave doesn't have to even provide any food or parnasa sustenance for a slave? So a slave gets nothing from the master. Amalanu. So Rav Meir answered up, Ma ilu evet kohen shabarach ve'eshes kohen shemar dal bala. If you have a slave of a kohen that ran away, or an eshes kohen that rebelled against her husband, she left the house, right? And they didn't get a divorce. The Eved who ran away from his master did not get the divorce. Get shikra. Truma. They can eat truma. And this person cannot eat. Okay, this person cannot eat because by you accepting the get on their behalf, they can't eat. But by a woman, it's detrimental to her that you're now, by accepting the get on her behalf, you're not disqualifying her from eating truma, and now she's losing her source of mezainis, because a woman, the husband's always obligated to give food. So this part of the brisa seems a little choppy, and the Gemara is going to explain it right now. What did the rabbi say to Rav Meir, and what did they respond? This is what the rabbi said to Rav Meir. Rav Meir, you hold it's detrimental for a woman, detrimental. This is what Rav Meir meant to say. That you're telling me that it's detrimental for a woman, for a woman to Rav Meir holds it detrimental for a slave to go free. So we told him, Hey Sheftuni al Hamazonis, Ma Tishivuni al Hatruma. They told him that it's true that it's detrimental, but true that the old master does not have to give him food, so it's beneficial. So Rav Meir said, but truma, this guy could get truma. So while he's a slave, he could always eat truma. If you're going to say, Rav Meir says that if you're going to tell me that truma, if he wants to disqualify his evet from truma, he could take a get, shikra, and just throw it in the 4 amos of the slave, and automatically the slave can't eat truma anymore once he receives the get. At any time, the master can just disqualify him from eating truma. So that's not true, Rav Meir will say. Rav Meir says, Shavak le va'arek va'azal alma. The slave can run away, and the master won't be able to give him a get shikra. And in that case, this slave that's on the run will always be able to eat truma. So it's advantageous for him to be an eved. It's advantageous because wherever he goes, he could just find and say, I'm an eved kohen. I didn't get a get shikra, and therefore I could collect truma. That's what ma ilu. We go to page Yud Gimel. Ma ilu eved kohen shabarach ve'eshes kohen shemar dal bala haloi oichlin b'truma. If an eved kohen ran away, or a wife of a kohen, just is on the lam, walked out of her husband's house, they still eat truma. By this agent accepting the get shichra on the behalf of the eved without being appointed by the slave, if he automatically says, I want to be the agent of the slave, and he wasn't told to do so, what he's doing is a detriment, because now by accepting the get shichra, the slave can no longer eat truma. So that is a great question that Rav Meir says that it is beneficial for a slave to remain a slave. So the Gemara says, Shapa Kamalu, isn't it a great thing? What Rav Meir says, that it's beneficial for the slave to remain a slave. Amarava, so what did Rabbanan answer? Amarava, Hainu de Kamhadrile b'Mishnisin. In our Mishnah, they gave the answer. B'pnei shu kinyonei. The boy shokale abarazuz misrol pasle kol hecha deise. There's another way to stop this eved from eating truma, not by giving him to go free. If the master really wants to disqualify him from eating truma, he could sell this slave for just a small amount of money, 4 zuzim, 4 quarters, to another Yisrael, and then he's no longer an eved kohen. So therefore, it's automatically he's not losing out by that eating truma, because if at any point the master can do that, so the eved is no longer in control that he eat truma, because the master's in the control, and he could always sell him off right now to Yisrael. Therefore, according to the Chachamim, it's always beneficial for the slave to go free. Ula Rav Meir, so now comes the Gemara's question. Rav Meir holds it's detrimental for him to go free. An eved to go free, it's detrimental. So Rav Meir only said, Teinach eved kohen. Rab Meir only answered an Evet Kohen, a slave of a Kohen, it's detrimental for him to go free because wherever he goes, he has truma. But Evet Yisrael, ma'iklamema. But if you're a slave of Yisrael, why is it detrimental for a slave of a regular Yisrael? Why is it detrimental for him to go free? He never eats truma, and as we said before, his master is not required to feed him supper. So he has really no gain from remaining an Evet. He doesn't have food. The master doesn't give him food, and plus he has no truma. So why is it not beneficial? Why does Rab Meir say, no, for an Evet Yisrael to go free, it's also detrimental? An Evet wants to remain an Evet. So the Gemara says a fascinating thing. Amar Rab Shmuel Bar Yitzchak. Rab Shmuel Bar Yitzchak said, an Evet Kanani wants to remain a slave because if you want to make him free, you're causing him a loss that he cannot be with a shiksala. He cannot be with a Evet Kananis, with a shifcha Kananis, a goyish a maid. So the Gemara says, why not? Adarabba, just the opposite. It should be beneficial for him to go free because harei matiroi b'bas charim. By going free, now we can marry a regular Bas Yisrael, a Beis Yaakov girl. So instead of marrying a Shifcha Kananis, when he goes free, he becomes like a regular ger. And he can marry any Beis Yaakov girl, any Bas Chorim. So the Gemara says, no, he likes to remain a slave because Avda Behefkera Nichli. You got to remember this word. A slave loves the freedom of doing whatever you want, like Hefker with your wife. Because when he has a wife who's a Shiksa, Zilale, she has no dignity in his eyes. He has no respect for her. And therefore, Shchichele, she's always around when he wants to do Tashmish, and Pritzale, and she's open to him to any type of relations that he wants, funny type of relations. So he doesn't want to, he'd rather be with a Shifcha Kananis than a Kavechi Jewish girl. So therefore, Rab Meir holds that it's detrimental for him to go free. And that's why you're not his agent unless the Eved appointed you his agent. But the Rabbanan hold no. Despite the fact that he likes with a Shifcha Kananis, it's better off, he gets more advantageous being a free man, free Jew, and being allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. So very interesting Gemara. We begin a new Mishnah. If a man says just this statement, he didn't write a get, okay? He didn't write a get. He says, give a get to my wife. In other words, you should write the get and then give it to my wife. Or he said, Shtar Shichru Zela Avdi. Or you write a Shtar Shichru, a freedom star, and give it to my slave. Okay? So he gave instructions. And the Shliach is about to do it, but Umeis, the owner or the husband, died. Lo yitnu la'achar misa. You can't give it after the guy died. Why? Because, first of all, ein get la'achar misa, right? So although he died, now she can marry anyone she wants, but technically she falls to Yibam. And therefore, you can't give a get after the guy died. And furthermore, if it was a slave, the slave now becomes the owner, owner of the inheritors. It's not the master anymore. It's his kid's slave, and therefore he cannot give this. He cannot now write a shtar shikrar on behalf of the deceased master. But here's this point: Tnu mana leish ploini. If the guy says give this 100 mana to $100 to this person, umeis, and then he died, yitnu la'achamisa, then you could give it after he dead. If he said, give this money to this person, give it to him after his death. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Masu Mishmei de Rav. So Rabbi Yitzchak said in the name of Rav, that we said in the last part of the Mishnah, man says, give a money to this so-and-so, give him this money, and then he dies, you could give it to after his death. It's only on condition that, let's say, the money is piled up on his desk, and it's in his corner of his desk, and as he said it, he pointed to the money and said, with this money, give it to so-and-so. And then even if he dies, you give it to so-and-so. So the Gemara asks, what is the Mishnah talking about? But Ma'askina, what type of person is this? The one that said it, if he was a healthy person, just because it was piled on his desk, why do you have to give it after he died? The recipient didn't lift up the money. He wasn't kind of the money. And so therefore, as soon as the man died, it really belongs to his kids. So you shouldn't have to give it to that so-and-so after he died. The other guy didn't do a kinyan. The Ella b'shchivmara. If it's talking about a guy on his deathbed, we give ultimate respect to a guy on his deathbed, that whatever instructions he said, we follow through on that. That's a halacha about a shchimera, somebody who's is about to die. So if that's the case, my yitzvurim, why does it have to be piled up on his desk and ready to be given to somebody? If he's on his deathbed, he ain't sevurim name. Even if it wasn't piled up, even if it was just somewhere in the bank, right? You would still have to follow through to give the money to that person after he died. Because we have a rule, the words of a shchivra are considered as if they're given over. There's no kinyan needed. We just have to follow through on his instructions. So how do you explain our Mishnah and Rav's interpretation of our Mishnah that the money is piled up on his desk? So we have two explanations. Amar Rav Zvid says, L'oilim bebarim. Really, we're talking about somebody who is very healthy. Ukravuna Amarav, Amarav Huna Amarav, Manali Biyotcha Tnei Leploinim B'Mamach Shloshtan Kana. That if a man said, I gave you money to watch. Here we're talking, our Mishnah is talking about a man gave somebody money to watch, okay? He put money on deposit, not for the money that the guy should use it. He gave it to a shomer to watch like a suitcase full of money, okay? Now, in front of him, in front of the person that's watching the money, the owners of the money said, give it to so-and-so. So there's three people here. The person whose money it is, the shomer, the one who's watching the money, and the person that he wants to give it to. So if he says that in the presence of all three, b'ma'amad shlosh, in the presence of all three, kana, the third guy gets it, he gets it even without making a kinyan, because the fact that the money is here, that automatically is as if the shomer committed that he would give it to based to whoever's the instructions of the person that gave him the money to watch, and therefore the money has to be here. In other words, if he loaned him money, so then if the money is not here, then Ma'amad Shloshtim would not work. It's only because the money is being watched by this shomer and it's presently here, then even without a kinyan, giving it to somebody else with Ma'amad Shloshtim is sufficient. So therefore, even if he died, even if the original owner died, the fact that he said, give it to so-and-so, and the money was present in the shomer's possession right the way the owner, the person who had the money gave it to him, it's right there. So then even without a kinyan, you have to follow through after the death. Rav Papa says, L'oilam b'shchimara, really we're talking about a guy on his deathbed. And why do you have to have the money piled up? Because if somebody is on a deathbed, if he said, give this money to so-and-so from my possessions, man is there, nice. If he pointed to the money, then you follow through on what the guy said on his deathbed, and you give it to him. But man is tam, if he said, give money to so-and-so, you don't give it to him. Why? Maybe he was thinking, maybe the guy on his deathbed was thinking not to give him the money in the bank. Maybe he has money buried in his backyard. And therefore, you don't follow through unless he specifically pointed out which money to give. The Shchivra pointed which money to give to so-and-so. So that's how you say, that's why Rav said, our Mishnah is talking about the money's piled up, but we're still talking about a man that's on his deathbed. The Hilchasa, the halacha is, L'kvur le'chashinim. We don't concern ourselves that maybe a guy on his deathbed meant money that's buried in his backyard. Even if he did not point to the money, even it's the halacha is that even if he did not point to the money, he just said give money to so and so, and then he died, you have to follow through. That's the halacha. So Rav Papa said our Mishnah is talking about a shchimara, and Rav Zvid said our Mishnah is talking about a healthy individual. So two questions, and then we'll end. Rav Papa, my time Rav Zvid. Why didn't Rav Papa learn like Rav Zvid that interpret our Mishnah? That our Mishnah is talking about a healthy person, and we're dealing with a Ma'amad Shloshtim case. Okay, Ma'amad Shloshtim, again, in the presence of three people, you can say, Mani li biyotcha, my money that I gave you, give it to so-and-so. So, Kesavar, we go to Amud Beis, Kesavar Rapapa holds, Ki Amar Rav Zid, Lo yishna b'milva v'lo yishna b'pekadayin. That Ma'amad Shloshtim would work even on a loan. It doesn't have to be piled up. Rav Papa learned that Rav said Ma'amad Shloshtim. Again, Ma'amad Shloshtim means that somebody has money, that's one person gave money to somebody. If he gave it to watch to somebody, and then he said, give it to so-and-so, and that so-and-so is present, it all works together. It works even without a kinyan. But Rav Papa held that Rav even held that even if he loaned somebody money, and now that person owes him money, if he says, don't pay me, give the money that you're going to pay me, pay it, give it to somebody else. It even works by then. So if that's the case, our Mishnah cannot be talking about a bari and in Mamet Shloshton case, because then why do you need the money to be present? Why did Rav say that our Mishnah you need the money to be present? If our Mishnah is discussing a Mamet Shloshton case, Rav's of the opinion, the way Rav Papa understands Rav, is that even if it was a loan, even if the money's not present, Mamet Shloshton will work. That's why Rav Papa interpreted our Mishnah that our Mishnah is discussing when the man is on his deathbed. Rav Zvid, my time along Rav Papa. Why didn't Rav Zvid say like Rav Papa that our Mishnah is talking about somebody on his deathbed? Because Rav Zvid said, we cannot say our Mishnah is talking about somebody on his deathbed. Now, listen to this. Why can't you say our Mishnah is talking about a guy on his deathbed saying, give this money to somebody, so-and-so? Why? Mimai, because our Mishnah discusses in the beginning of the Mishnah, Midiktani, our Mishnah says, a man said, give this get to my wife and this freedom star to my Eved. Umeis, then he died. You can't follow through after he's died to give the get to his wife or the shtar shichra to the Eved. Now, Tama Demes, the whole reason why you don't give it after he died is because he died. If he's alive, by saying the word tnu, give it, nice, then we'd follow through. You don't have to re-ask him, do you really want to give it? If he said tnu, means write it up and give it. And you don't have to re-ask him. You can follow through if he's still alive. So it's only because he died, that's why you don't give it. Now, Tama the Ama tnu, but it's only because, now follow this, it's only because he said, give it give it to my wife. But if he didn't say the word tnu, let's say he said kisvu, just write a get, and he didn't say give it to my wife, and then we wouldn't give it, because if he's a real healthy guy, then you have to double check. You only said write a get, but you didn't say give the get. So that's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah specifically said that the guy said tnu, because if he would say kisvu, then even mechayim, even if he was still alive, you would still not give it to the lady. You would have to re-ask the guy, do you really want to give the get? But if our Mishnah was talking about a shchimera, even if he didn't say tnu, noisnim, you would still give the get, and you wouldn't have to double check with him. The Tnan, we learned in a Mishnah, Bereishayna in the beginning, they used to say, anybody who goes out with a neck iron. Let's say the judges, the Goyish judges are declaring so-and-so to die, and they put a neck iron around his neck. And as he's being led to the guillotine, he says, Kisu ged li'ishti, write up a get for my wife. Notice he didn't say tnu get. So a man, he's still alive, right? And they didn't kill him. Let's say it was pushed off the day of execution. They could write up the get and give it, even though he said the word kisvu, chazru, and that's not only by a guy who's on death row. Even somebody who's going on a long trip, right, or going overseas on a ship, he could also, if he said the word kisvu, we would follow through and give the get to his wife. Why didn't he say give the get to my wife? Why did he say just write a get for my wife? Because he's flustered. He's so nervous about the trip. That's why he didn't get a chance to say tnu. But we know what he meant. Write it and give it. Rab Shimon says, even a guy on his deathbed, and here's the point. Rab Shimon Zuri says, even a guy on his deathbed, even if he just says kisvu, right? You have to give it, you write and give the get. You don't have to re-ask him. Why didn't he say tnu? It's because he's on his deathbed and he's flustered. So he just said the word kisvu. So if our Mishnah was discussing a guy who's a shchivmara, our Mishnah would not have to say he said tnu get zela ishti, and even if he said kisvu zela ishti, if he's still around, you would follow through. Why did our Mishnah say tnu? It must be, concludes Rav Zvid, our Mishnah is not discussing a shchivmara. Our Mishnah is discussing a bari, a very healthy person. But Gemara just concludes with this question. You only base that, Rav Zvid, is only because Rav Shimon Shizuri says that somebody on his deathbed, by saying kiz kisvu, by saying write the get, that would be enough and sufficient for us to write and give the get. Maskiv Rav Shiashi, ma name Alanda Masnisha Rav Shimon Shizuri. How do you know our Mishnah is Rav Shimon Shizuri? Dilma Rabbanani. Maybe our Mishnah goes according to Rabbanan, that even with a guy on his deathbed, if he says kisvu get liishti, write a get for my wife, we'll not follow through on that. We'd have to come back to him and ask him, what did you mean? Did you mean write it and give it, or just write it? So therefore, our Mishnah, according to Rabbanan, can be discussing a shemara, and that's where our Papa learned. Our Mishnah is discussing is talking about a guy on his deathbed. Nevertheless, Rav Zvid learned our Mishnah is talking about a healthy individual. Okay, so ended Daf Yomi Gimel.